Assalamualaikum and good greetings. So again we will be discussing the question whether Quran actually teach hatred towards Jews and Christians. So we are commenting on this comment here where this commenter said, I also said that the Quran and the Hadith preached hatred towards the Jews and the Christians, and he cited all these verses. So we have done first video for surah number 1, and then we have done surah number 2, and then we have done surah number 5. We also have done surah number 7. So we will continue on in this video, surah number 8. It states that here 8 verses 12, 13, 39 onwards. Without further ado, let's take a look at the Quranic verse from surah number 8. So this is surah 8 verse 12. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. إذ يوحي ربك إلى الملائكة إني معكم فثبتوا الذين آمنوا سألقي في قلوب الذين كفروا الرعب فاضربوا فوق الأعناق واضربوا منهم كل بنان. صدق الله العظيم. When your Lord inspired to the angels, إني معكم, I am with you. فثبتوا الذين آمنوا, and so strengthened those who believe. So this is like Allah is saying to the angels, okay, I'm with you, strengthen the believers. Sa'ulki fi qulubil lazina kafaru ru'b, I will cast in the hearts of those who disbelieved terror. So this is Allah mentioned, I will myself will cast terror in their hearts. So Allah will cause their heart to be terrified. Fadribu fawqa al-a'naq, so strike above their necks. Wadribu minhum kulla banan, and strike from them every fingertips. So it does mention that, okay, so this is like Allah is instructing the angel to do some terrifying stuff, right? To strike their neck and then to strike their fingertips. What's going on? So this is surah 8, surah Al-Anfal, and to get the idea of what is this all about, so before we go back to this verse to discuss the proper context, let's take a look at the context. Let's take a look from verse 1 where the story begins. What is this all about? So we go to verse number 1. Yas'alunaka 'anil anfal, they ask you about the spoils of war. Qulil anfalu lillahi wa rasul, say that the spoil of war is for Allah and the messenger. Fattaqullaha wa aslihu zata bainikum, so fear Allah and set right that is between you. Wa ati Allah, so obey Allah, wa Rasul and Rasul, in kuntum mu'minin, if you are truly among the believers. So the very first verse in the surah actually give the idea of what is this all about. It is with the context of a battlefield. When we see about Al-Anfal, Al-Anfal is specifically the spoils of war, meaning that this is the aftermath of a war. The surah begins with the aftermath of war, and people are asking about the spoils of war. Then the surah actually goes into the verses within the battle itself, etc. Right? So the context is battlefield. The context is battle and war. We will go back to that verses. You cannot say that is like in a community. If you see a neighbor strike the neck, and it doesn't work that way. It is not that context. It is context of, okay, this is a battlefield. So if you understand that, we can discuss that context of the verse. If you cannot understand that, or you do not want to understand that, I cannot do anything about that. Before we go to verse 12, let's take a look at one of these verse to understand some of the context. Let's say here, right? لِيُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ وَيُبْطِلَ الْبَاطِلَ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ, so he might justify the truth and prove false the falsehood, even if the dislike of the criminals. Of course, feel free to go through all of these verses on your own, right, to fully understand the full context, but I'm just picking things up so that at least you understand some of the context. This is battlefield. That is because there are some those who are considered to have done certain crime that warrant this battle to happen. So you cannot take any of this verse and what follows after to imagine that this verse is teaching us to live in a society, in a community, and suddenly you take the verse as if Muslim is justified to do certain things in a society. No. This is about when that happened, right? We are on the battlefield, and we go back to that verse, right? Okay, going back to this verse, right? When Allah says to the malaikat, to the angel, go and strengthen the believer, and then when Allah say Allah will cast terror in their heart, of course I have made a video about this where Christian Prince somehow do not understand this and said that this verse is promoting terrorism, when how can you say Allah is causing their heart terror means terrorism? It doesn't match. Anyway, some people quote this part, Wadribu fawqal a'naq, strike above their necks وَاضْرِبُوا مِنْهُمْ كُلَّ بَنَانٍ, and strike the fingertips. Of course, one, this should be understood that this is the story of battlefield. Hopefully that's clear. And second, some people still say, why in the battlefield is very specific like that? So you have to understand this is within that time, right? In that time, if you have the full gear of going to the battle, right? What do you call that? The iron, the steel shield. I do not know what's the proper name, but you know what I mean, right? So the best way to strike down the opponent is at the small portion of fragile, right? Meaning that when you are padded with all the steel here, so there's opening here, that, you know, strike that, and also this opening here, right? Because elsewhere they are protected with the shield, with the steel, right? So it is in that context, right? Meaning that in the context of battlefield, in that time where that is the gear, if the command say, okay, strike the neck and strike the fingertips, you know, that's strategic command. You understand? Meaning that in the battlefield, within that context, that command is understood. That is strategic command, how to win against the opponent, strike that weakness point. It's not about Muslim are taught to strike the neck of some other people, right? How can you make that leap? So please do understand the context. Now it says verse 12 and then verse 13. Let's take a look at verse 13. ذَلِكَ بَأَنَّهُمْ شَاقُّوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَمَنْ يُشَاقِقِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. That is because they have opposed Allah and His Messenger. And whoever opposes Allah and His Messenger, Allah is severe in the penalty. Allah will give severe penalty. I'm not sure how this verse is cited to say that this is teaching hate, because this is giving reason to the before, right? Meaning that in the battle, why that battle happening? Because they is going directly to oppose Allah and His Messenger. The context of the battle is they directly want to go against the prophets and the believer because they are believer, because they are Muslim. That's the reason of that clash. It's not because for their land or whatever, right? They actually go against Allah and His Messenger. So you know the proper context. This is al-haq and al-batil, right? So it's within this context. He stated another verse is 39. So we'll jump to 39, see what's going on there. But this still all within that context, this original context of battle, right? We can go all of this, but it will be a long video. But feel free to read on your own, right? وَقَاتِلُهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةٌ وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ كُلُّهُ لِلَّهِ فَإِنْ انْتَهُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. وَقَاتِلُهُمْ, and fight them until there is no fitnah, there's no oppression. وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ كُلُّهُ لِلَّهِ, and the deen, the religion is for Allah. فَإِنْ انْتَهَوْا, but if they cease, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. Indeed, Allah is of what they do all see. So meaning that if they cease to be attacking Allah and the Messenger, the fight will not occur in the first place, right? So how is this teaching hate? I'm not sure. In the previous video, we have talked about fitnah, right? In the previous video or the previous one, where there are verse where Allah justify why the battle takes place. And in that context, al-fitnah, there's already elaboration in that verses, right? They have directly prevent people from going and knowing God. They actually push people away from their homes. That is the fitnah that is considered as a bigger thing than battle. Meaning in that verse, go and check out the previous videos, right? Allah did mention that yes, battle is a big deal, right? It's not a small deal, it's a big deal, but this is a bigger deal because they directly prevent people from knowing God, from obeying God, and they push people away from their home, etc. So those are the fitnah that is being mentioned. So Allah said, al-fitnatu akbaru min al-qatl. In this case, Allah re-emphasized the same thing. So you fight until there's no longer fitnah. So if I assume you have already covered that one, so you know you understand the context here. I'm not sure how you can link any hate here, because the reason for the Muslim to be in the fighting is because the fitnah is ongoing. The people that are driving people away from their home, that shouldn't be let happen. We have to stop them, and if it requires us to go battle against them, we would be willing to, for the sake of justice there, right? So it's not about hate. The battle is not about hate. It's not like fight them because you hate them, or fight them, they are people that you should hate. It's not nothing like that. You always see that there are contexts there that legitimize the battle. Again, this entire verses and entire surah Al-Anfal is start off with the context of battlefield, and it is within that context. So hopefully you understand that and do not take things outside of the context just to justify what you want to see. Alright, so that's it. So far we have done 4 videos, 4 or 5, right? None of the verse actually can be justifiedly said to teach hate towards Jews or Christians. Alright, so see you next time.